Gravity Falls is a series known for being extremely good, extremely witty, and extremely mysterious. But even so, claiming something as strange as someone secretly living in the Mystery Shack without any of the main characters knowing sounds like a theory that's a bit too far-fetched. Especially because we would think that a mystery like that would get a little more attention in the show. And just in case, I'm not talking about Bill Cipher, since we know that all the images of him are windows from his universe into the universe of the show, so he keeps watching everyone inside the shack during the events of Gravity Falls. No, there's someone else who has been living there for decades, a real physical person who has hidden so well that the clues about their existence are few. But it's an undeniably real fact, so real that it's been confirmed in several canon sources and in Journal 3 itself. This peculiar mystery begins with the episode known as The Magic Carpet. It's an episode from the first season where, after a fight between Dipper and Mabel, because of an ultra-destructive sleepover that Mabel and her friends had, the twins end up fighting over who gets to move into the new room that Seuss finds while cleaning the Mystery Shack. And if you know the episode, you already know the rest of the plot. Uncle Stan exploits their desire for separate rooms by promising the room to whoever pleases him most and allows him to take advantage of them. While all this is happening, the twins accidentally switch bodies because of a rug that was in the new room. But strangely, that's not what we're interested in. The morning after the sleepover, we see that Mabel and her friends left a ridiculous mess in the room. Besides the general destruction, Mabel was left unconscious on the floor with Party Girl written on her forehead. Candy was stuck to the ceiling with industrial tape. We see Gumpers eating what was left of the pizza, and Granda was inside the closet. When she came out covered in lipstick marks, she said, "I don't know what I was kissing back there, but I have no complaints." Which sounds like a silly joke among many others, but let me explain. If we go back a bit in the series to the episode Little Dipper, which happens before Carpe Diem, we'll find a pretty funny sequence. It turns out that Dipper and Mabel are arguing because Mabel bullies him a lot after discovering that she's a millimeter taller. So Dipper makes himself bigger using a crystal that can change the size of things, which he finds using information from Journal 3. When his growth can no longer be explained naturally, Mabel starts to suspect that he's using magic to grow, and she's convinced that he has a wizard hidden in the closet. She presses Dipper about the issue, and when she opens the closet door, she asks him if he seriously has an invisible wizard hidden in there. Then, it is revealed that he is actually using the crystal along with a flashlight, and Mabel points at the closet, saying she'll come back for him later. And the one from Little Dipper says the following: "The invisible wizard is watching." And that's where the mystery ended. For now, there were just a few mentions that may or may not have been meaningless jokes about there being an invisible wizard in the Mystery Shack. Almost 2 years after these episodes aired during the second season, in October 2014, a Gravity Falls book was released titled Dipper and Mabel's Guide to Mystery and Fun. The book contains several interesting codes, and one of them says, "The invisible wizard keeps untying Dipper's shoes." So, maybe they really do have an invisible wizard living in the attic closet. But a popular theory at that time was that the supposed invisible wizard didn't exist, and that it was all a weakling's conspiracy. The first curious detail is that the code we found in the book is written using Bill Cipher's symbols, so it's very clear that it's a phrase said by him. That's pretty suspicious, keeping in mind that that infernal triangle lies and manipulates all the time, and that, in an official Bill Cipher Q&A in the Gravity Falls community on Reddit around that time, he answered a question about his fixation with Dipper and Mabel. "I have eyes in many places. I have friends with many faces. I keep the pines in the right places. Don't look now, untie your shoelaces." The original English text rhymes, but this one doesn't. But what matters is that this would mean that the invisible wizard is actually Bill, hiding in the cabin, which would also mean that he was brutally smooched by Grenda. And many argue that this is exactly why he says he's a monster in the episode Sock Opera. At that time it was just a theory, but as the series went on we realized there was a big problem. Bill doesn't have a physical form in the real world, so he has to limit himself to influencing events and people from the Nightmare Realm, a dimension between dimensions, while he looks for a way to cross over into the show's dimension. It's a central point of the plot for the whole series, so it just doesn't make sense for the Sorcerer to be Bill. Well, the answer to all of this would come with the Physical Journal 3, which came out in 2016 after the end of the series, and lets us read Journal 3 in its entirety, as well as new notes made after the weird Mageddon. And towards the first pages of the journal we find this, a page titled The Invisible Sorcerer. Don't believe what your eyes see? Well, you don't have to. This strange sorcerer is completely impossible to observe with the naked eye. However, with night vision goggles, I was able to catch a quick glimpse of him while he was trying on my suits in the closet. Then he turned my goggles into a bat. The page describes what the author was able to see in that instant before his goggles turned into a bat. It mentions that he has piercing blue eyes and chiseled cheekbones, so he could be a model if he weren't invisible. In addition, he has a beautiful magic wand in his right hand that shines with all the colors of the rainbow, along with a ridiculous pointy hat that makes the author say that, with that thing on his head, he definitely has to be a wizard. He even has a belt with magic potions, which leads the author to think that these are what he uses to stay invisible and possibly to teleport through time. That's right, judging by the terrible smell, the author assumes that the wizard comes from a time when bathrooms hadn't been invented yet, so he believes this is a wizard from the past. His reason for making those trips through time is unknown, but the author finally mentions that it would be worth getting another wizard to perform a wizard exorcism and get rid of this beautiful magical man living in his closet. That would be a good and really final ending for this mystery, with an ultra-handsome time-traveling wizard living in the cabin, but we still have one last plot twist left. A year after Journal 3 was released, a super limited and very expensive special edition came out with a bunch of extras, and many of the pages now had new information in invisible ink, just like in the series. And conveniently, the page about the invisible wizard has hidden information in this version of the journal, and it's revealed that the wizard is actually this thing. Using Philo Fiddleford's omnispectroscopic glasses, the author was able to get a more detailed look at the wizard and discovered that it's actually a deformed monster with the silhouette of a magician, even theorizing that the supposed wand could be a deformed hand. He mentions that it's probably one of the monsters from Bill's strange dimension, and that he has no idea why he thought it was handsome, assuming that his night vision goggles must have been really dirty when he saw it for the first time. In fact, on the next page we have the section about the vomiting fairies, which are basically what their name says, magical forest fairies that spend their time vomiting for unknown reasons. And well, in the invisible ink on this page, the author mentions that they are actually the only ones who can see the hideous and disgusting invisible wizard, and that's why they're always vomiting. So, in a final twist, it turns out the intruder had been living in the cabin's attic for decades, trying on the clothes Ford left behind. He's not an invisible wizard with the face of a European model, but a foul and horrifying monster with magical abilities, who slipped from Bill's dimension into the show's dimension. And we know he exists, and he's real, mainly because in one of the episodes he wears lipstick and passionately kisses a teenage girl. Everything I just said is canon, and as disturbing as it is, you can't do absolutely anything about it. Actually, maybe calling a psychiatrist for the show's creator is a good idea. So, I hope you enjoyed this really weird video. If you did, relax, subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye. Bye-bye.